The morning sun poured through the glass walls of Falcon Enterprises, gilding the lobby in pale gold. Everything gleamed. The marble floors, the steel elevator doors, the lush green plants carefully arranged in every corner. To most, the place radiated success. To Alexander Hayes, it felt like a mausoleum. He walked briskly through the lobby, his reflection flashing across the polished floor. The security guard nodded respectfully. The receptionist gave her usual bright greeting. He responded with a tight smile that didn't reach his eyes. His tailored navy suit fit perfectly, his tie knotted with precision, but his heart wasn't in any of it. Not anymore. 3 years had passed since the accident, yet some mornings he still woke expecting to hear her humming from the kitchen. His late wife, Elena, had been the warmth in his world, the one who'd seen the man behind the title. Since losing her, every success had felt hollow, every achievement dull. He had built this empire brick by brick, but without her laughter echoing through his home, it all felt meaningless. His phone buzzed in his pocket. A message from his assistant flashed across the screen. Board meeting at 9:30. Investors waiting. He sighed and slipped the device away. Always meetings. Always money. Anything to fill the silence. As he strode toward the elevators, a cleaner was mopping near the far end of the hall, a quiet figure in a gray uniform. He barely noticed her, just as he barely noticed anyone these days. He pressed the elevator button, adjusting his cufflinks out of habit. When he reached into his coat for a pen, something small and metallic slipped from his pocket. It hit the floor with a faint clink, rolling out of sight. He didn't notice. All around, the lobby buzzed with morning activity, employees greeting each other, the soft hum of coffee machines, the rhythmic steps of polished shoes. Alexander stepped into the elevator just as a child's voice, clear and curious, drifted through the air behind him. "Sir, you dropped this." He turned, frowning slightly, and saw her, a little girl in a faded pink sweater, holding out something in her hand. The janitor's daughter, perhaps. He almost dismissed her, until he saw what she was holding. A small golden locket, glinting in the light, and in that instant, Alexander Hayes forgot to breathe. For a long moment, Alexander just stared at the child, frozen halfway between disbelief and confusion. The morning chatter in the lobby faded to a distant murmur, drowned out by the pounding in his ears. "You dropped this, sir," the girl repeated softly, taking a cautious step closer. Her voice carried an innocent sincerity that tugged at something deep inside him. She couldn't have been more than 8 or 9, thin, with dark hair that escaped her ponytail in messy strands and wide brown eyes that watched him curiously. Her small hand trembled slightly as she offered him the locket. Alexander knelt slowly, his knees stiff from shock. His fingers brushed hers as he took the delicate piece of jewelry. The instant his skin touched the cool metal, a shiver ran through him. He knew this locket. He knew it in a way that went beyond memory. The faint engraving on the back, E.M., the initials of Elena Marin Hayes, was unmistakable. His breath hitched. His mind screamed that it wasn't possible. That locket had been buried with her. He had seen it himself, placed in her hands at the funeral before the casket was closed. His throat tightened painfully as he clicked it open with trembling hands. Inside were 2 tiny photographs, faded but still clear. On one side, Elena smiled at him, her eyes full of light and mischief. On the other, his own face looked back at him, years younger, filled with joy he barely remembered having. The girl tilted her head. "It's pretty," she said quietly. "My mom said things that shine used to belong to people who loved a lot." He swallowed hard. "Your mom told you that?" She nodded, smiling shyly. "She gave it to me a few days ago. Said it was a lucky charm. But when I saw you drop it, I thought maybe it really belongs to you." Alexander's heart hammered in his chest. "What's your mother's name?" he asked, trying to keep his voice steady. The girl hesitated, then said softly, "Elena." The world seemed to tilt. His grip loosened, and the locket swung from his fingers. The name echoed in his mind, haunting, impossible, alive. Somewhere across the lobby, a woman's voice called out, "Lily." "What are you doing?" Alexander turned toward the sound, his pulse roaring in his ears, and saw her. The voice cut through the air like a ghost returning from memory. "Lily, what are you doing?" Alexander turned, the golden locket still trembling in his hand. Across the lobby, A woman was hurrying toward them, her gray janitor's uniform slightly oversized, a strand of hair falling loose from her bun. At first, he thought his mind was playing cruel tricks on him, grief conjuring what he most wanted to see. But as she drew closer, the world around him blurred into nothing. She had her face, the same warm hazel eyes, the same gentle curve of lips that once smiled at him across candlelit dinners. Even the faint freckle near her right cheekbone, he remembered tracing it with his thumb when they were newly married. Elena, he breathed, the name leaving his lips before he could stop it. The woman froze mid-step, her eyes widening in shock. The color drained from her face. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The bustling lobby fell silent in his mind, replaced by the echo of her name, over and over. "Sir," she managed finally, her voice unsteady. "Do I know you?" He rose to his full height, though his knees felt weak. "It's me," he said softly. "Alexander." Her lips parted. Confusion flickered across her face, followed by something deeper, something that looked like fear. "That's impossible," she whispered. "You," she shook her head quickly, clutching her daughter's shoulder. "You must be mistaken." He stepped closer, his voice trembling. "I buried you, Elena. 3 years ago. How are you here?" The girl looked up at her mother, eyes darting between them. "Mom." Elena's breath hitched. She took a step back, almost instinctively, as though unsure whether to run or cry. "Please," she said, her voice breaking. "Not here." Alexander stared at her, lost between disbelief and hope. The smell of her shampoo, the same faint jasmine scent, drifted toward him. Everything in him screamed that it was her. She looked at him one last time, eyes glistening with unshed tears. "Meet me after work," she whispered. "Behind the old church on 5th Street. Then she turned away, guiding her daughter toward the janitor's closet, leaving him standing alone in the middle of the shining lobby, his heart pounding, the locket warm in his palm, and 1,000 questions burning in his mind. The old church on 5th Street stood like a forgotten relic of time, its stone walls cracked, ivy creeping along the edges, and the once bright stained glass faded to dull hues. Evening sunlight filtered through the trees, casting long, dappled shadows across the courtyard. Alexander's car sat parked nearby, the engine long since turned off, but he hadn't moved. His mind was a storm. Every second since seeing her had replayed in an endless loop. The locket, the child, the look in her eyes. It couldn't be her. And yet, there was no mistaking what he'd seen. When he finally heard the crunch of footsteps on gravel, he turned. Elena stood a few yards away, dressed now in simple clothes, worn jeans, a cream sweater, her hair down. The sight of her stole the breath from his lungs. She looked exactly as she had before the accident, older, yes, but real. Alive. He stepped forward, his voice barely above a whisper. "You're alive." She nodded faintly, her eyes shimmering. "I am." "Why?" His voice cracked, raw from holding back years of grief. "Why didn't you tell me? Why did you let me think you were gone?" Tears welled in her eyes. She took a shaky breath. "Because I had to protect Lily, and you." "Protect us. From what?" Elena looked away, her hands trembling. "After the crash, I woke up in a hospital miles away. The police said the car had been tampered with, brakes cut. It wasn't an accident, Alex. Someone wanted us dead." His heart stopped. "What are you saying?" "I saw things. People from your company, files you were never supposed to find. They thought killing me would silence everything." She met his eyes, her voice trembling. "When I realized who was behind it, I knew if I came back, they'd try again. So I disappeared, started over, changed my name. I found work where no one would look for me." Alexander's hands curled into fists. "All this time, I thought I failed you." Tears slid down her cheeks. "You didn't fail me. You kept living. That's what I wanted." He stepped closer, unable to stop himself. "I never stopped loving you." She smiled weakly, her voice breaking. "And I never stopped watching over you." The church bells rang softly in the distance, the sound haunting and beautiful, marking the end of 3 lost years, and the beginning of something neither of them had dared to hope for again.